On my 45th birthday, my wife and kids made me sit at the head of the table for a special surprise. My daughter handed me a box. Inside was a cheap plastic trophy that said, "World's #1 disappointment." They thought it was funny. I smiled, said thank you, blew out the candles, thanked them all, and then cleaned up alone while they watched TV. That night, I made a plan. A week later, my wife showed up at my old job in a bathrobe, crying and shouting, "He left us with nothing." Look, I've never been the type to air dirty laundry online. Hell, Ruth would probably roll her eyes if she knew I was typing this out at 2:38 a.m. on my phone, sitting in my garage. My garage that I built with my own 2 hands, by the way, though the family calls it Dad's junk room. But something happened yesterday I can't shake, and I need to get this off my chest before the engine in my head overheats. Some background. I turned 45 yesterday. I've been married to Ruth for 22 years. We have 2 kids, Emily, 19, who just started college, and Oscar, 14, who thinks he knows everything. I've been at the same factory since before Emily was born. Not glamorous work, but it's kept food on the table and the lights on. 50-hour weeks minimum. Haven't missed a mortgage payment in 15 years. The factory's been talking layoffs lately. Everyone's walking around like they're stepping on eggshells. 3 guys from my line got pink slips last month. Management keeps saying restructuring, like it's supposed to make us feel better. My blood pressure's been through the roof. Ruth keeps saying we should downsize, but at the same time, she's eyeing a new kitchen remodel. Make that make sense. So yesterday was my birthday. Usually it's nothing special. Maybe a store-bought cake, a card from the kids if they remember. This year, though, Ruth texted me at work. "Make sure you're home by 6, special dinner for your birthday." I'll admit, something in my chest lightened up a bit. Thought maybe they finally noticed the last couple of rough years, Ruth. And I barely talk anymore unless it's about bills. Emily only calls when she needs money for textbooks or whatever else 19-year-olds need these days. Oscar is either gaming or avoiding eye contact. I got home at 5:58 p.m., always punctual, one of my few remaining points of pride. I showered away the factory grime and put on the one decent button-up I own, a dark blue one Ruth got me 3 Christmases ago. I came downstairs with this stupid little spark of hope. The dining room table was actually set. Not paper plates, but the good dishes that normally only come out when Ruth's sister visits. There were candles lit, a homemade cake. For a second, just a second, I felt like maybe I mattered. Ruth pointed to the head of the table with an exaggerated sweep of her arm. Emily was filming with her phone. First red flag, but I ignored it. Oscar had this weird smirk. They all sang happy birthday, but something was off. The way they kept exchanging little glances. Here's the thing about expectations. They're just prepackaged disappointments waiting to be unwrapped. After the singing, Emily handed me a wrapped box about the size of a coffee mug. It was wrapped in glossy blue paper with actual ribbon. I remember thinking, damn, they really went all out. I opened it slowly. Ruth always complained I tear through presents like a savage. Inside was this plastic trophy, gold-colored plastic, about 6 inches tall, the kind you'd get at a dollar store. I turned it around and read the engraving, "World's #1 disappointment." For a second, I didn't process it. Then they all started laughing. Emily zoomed in with her phone camera right on my face. She said, "Tell Dad to give an acceptance speech." Ruth was practically crying with laughter, saying, "We saw it and just knew it had your name on it." Oscar high-fived his sister. 22 years of 60-hour weeks. 22 years of missed fishing trips so I could pick up extra shifts. 22 years of driving cars with 200,000+ miles so they could have new phones and computers and whatever else. And this was my reward. A trophy calling me a disappointment while my daughter filmed my reaction for whatever social media platform teenagers use these days. My face did that thing it learned to do years ago, smile without feeling it. My throat closed up like someone poured quick, dry cement down it. But I nodded, said thanks. Even held it up like I was at some award show. The cake was store-bought, after all, chocolate with vanilla frosting. I blew out the candles, just 4 of them, not 45, because who has time for that, and made a wish. I'm not proud of it. Ruth served everybody cake. We ate. They talked. About some reality show they're all obsessed with. I nodded at appropriate intervals. The trophy sat next to my plate, catching the candlelight, that word disappointment flashing every time I moved my head. When dinner was done, they all migrated to the living room. I cleared the table, washed the dishes, wrapped up the leftover cake. The whole time I could hear them laughing from the other room. At one point, Emily said something about his face when he read it, and there was more laughter. I put the trophy on the mantel. Seemed like that's what they wanted. Then, I went to the garage, sat in my '89 Silverado that Ruth's been begging me to sell for years. Just sat there staring at the pegboard wall with all my tools hanging in their proper places. The only space in this house that's still mine. At 11:43 p.m., my phone buzzed. A notification from Instagram. Emily had tagged me in a post. I don't really use Instagram much, but I have an account to keep tabs on the kids. It was a video of my reaction to the trophy. She'd added some song in the background, something with lyrics about losers or failures, I don't know. The caption read, "Dad's big moment. Hashtag Dad fails. Disappointment trophy. Birthday fail 812 likes already." I turned my phone off, turned it back on, checked our bank accounts. The joint checking had $4,287.21. Savings had $1,244.65. Ruth's emergency fund, that I'm not supposed to touch, still has around $500. I've spent most of tonight making a list. Things I own outright. Accounts only in my name. People who might still respect me. Places I could start over. What I'm legally obligated to provide versus what I've been providing. It's now 3:29 a.m. I've been sitting here drafting emails to myself, making lists, planning calls I'll make tomorrow. A man can only be a disappointment if he keeps seeking approval from people who've already decided not to give it. I've been trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom for too many years. Tomorrow I'm calling in sick for the first time in 3 years. While everyone's out of the house, I'm going to start putting things in motion. I've been their ATM, their handyman, their emotional punching bag. That cheap plastic trophy was the clearest message they've ever sent me. You don't matter. Here. Message received. That's all for now. Over and out. Update 1. Thanks for all the support on my last post. Currently writing this from my new place. We'll answer questions at the end, but first, to the Redditor who DM'd me saying I should just man up and communicate better. My friend, you don't put out an engine fire with a water pistol. Some things are beyond repair. 22 years of talking it out got me exactly where I am, holding a plastic trophy that says I'm a disappointment. So here's how the week after my birthday went down. Buckle up. Tuesday, the morning after. At 6:15 a.m., I called in sick for the first time in forever. My shift manager actually asked if I was dying. Dark humor. But it felt about right. I waited until 8:37 a.m. Ruth left to go shopping with her sister. Emily was at college. Oscar caught the bus to school. Then I began Operation Get My Life Back. Look, I'm a methodical guy. My toolbox has foam cutouts for every wrench. Everything has its place. So I approach this the same way I'd rebuild a transmission. Identify the problem, gather the tools, take it apart, piece by piece, and rebuild something that actually works. First stop, the home office. Ruth keeps the filing cabinet organized her way, which meant 45 minutes of digging through folders labeled helpful things like important and stuff. What I found turned my slow burn into a 5-alarm. Fire. 3 credit card statements I'd never seen before. Combined balance, $34,136 and change. Minimum monthly payments that explained why our joint account always seemed lighter than it should. Purchases from stores I'd never even heard of. A separate cell phone bill for a number I didn't recognize. Pro tip. If you're going to hide financial infidelity from your spouse, maybe don't leave the statements in a folder marked, "My stuff don't touch" in bright red Sharpie. I photographed everything, didn't take anything, just documented it. Second stop, the bank. Not the branch Ruth and I usually use, one across town. The personal banker looked concerned when I said I needed to open a separate checking account. She asked if everything was okay at home. I told her, "Sometimes the check engine light comes on for a reason. You can ignore it for a while, but eventually something's gonna blow." By noon, I had a new checking account in my name, only a direct deposit form ready for my next paycheck. The name of a financial advisor the banker recommended. Third stop. The grocery store parking lot bought a prepaid phone. Nothing fancy, just calls and texts. Paid cash. Activated it right there in the parking lot. At 2:05 p.m., I called Jake, old friend from my neighborhood. He manages maintenance at an apartment complex. Asked if he had any units open. He did. 1 bedroom. Nothing special, but clean. I could move in immediately if I paid. First and last month's rent. Done. Wednesday. Went to work as usual. Supervisor mentioned a training opportunity the following week. 5 days at the regional office. Perfect timing. I volunteered. Nobody else wanted it. Got approved on the spot. That night at dinner, I tried one last time. I really did. I asked Ruth if she'd consider marriage counseling. She laughed. Said we didn't need someone charging us $100 an hour just to tell me I need to lighten up. Emily chimed in. "You're being extra." Rolled her eyes. Oscar didn't even look up from his phone. Thursday after work, I swung by the apartment. Signed the lease, handed over the cash, got the keys. The place smelled like fresh paint and clean carpet. 1 bedroom, tiny kitchen, bathroom with a shower that had seen better days. But it was mine. All mine. No one to call it a disappointment. Jake helped me carry in a second-hand mattress he had in storage. Real friends don't ask questions when you show up needing a place to sleep. They just hand you a beer and ask if you need help moving furniture. Friday. During lunch, I did something I'd never done before. Logged into my 401k. Requested a loan, not the whole thing, just enough to give me a cushion. The website said 3 to 5 business days. That night, Ruth mentioned remodeling the master bathroom. Said it would probably cost around $12,000. Asked if I could pick up some extra overtime. I nodded. Said I'd see what I could do. All while knowing I wouldn't be there to install a single damn fixture. The irony didn't escape me. Her planning new additions. While I was planning my exit. Saturday, Ruth and the kids went to her mother's, about an hour away. They do this once a month, stay overnight, come back Sunday evening. With the house empty, I put my plan into high gear. I went through our bedroom and gathered only what was truly mine. The watch my father left me when he died. My high school football ring. The rare vinyl records I'd collected over the years. A photo album of my parents and childhood clothes that fit into 2 duffel bags. From the garage, I grabbed my tools. The one thing I absolutely wasn't leaving behind. In the office, I made copies of everything. Tax returns from the last 7 years, mortgage statements, insurance policies, birth certificates, marriage license, bank records showing my contributions. A spreadsheet I created, documenting every major purchase I'd made for the family. I left all the originals. This wasn't about stealing documents. It was about protecting myself. By mid-afternoon, my small apartment had gone from empty to sparse but functional. Mattress on the floor, folding table and a chair. My tools lined up neatly along one wall. Not exactly better homes and gardens, but it didn't have to be. It wasn't permanent. Sunday morning, letters. I sat down at the folding table and wrote 3 letters, one for each of them. Ruth's was straightforward. I explained I was leaving. Said I wouldn't contest a divorce if she wanted one. Told her I'd found the hidden credit cards. That 22 years of being treated like an ATM and a punchline had finally run the well dry. I made it clear I'd continue supporting Oscar. He's still a minor, but I wouldn't be financing anyone's lifestyle anymore. Emily's was shorter. I told her adults face consequences for how they treat people. That filming someone's humiliation for social media likes isn't a joke. It's cruelty. That I'd always love her, but I was no longer an emergency fund. That when she was ready to have a relationship based on mutual respect, my door would be open. Oscar's was the hardest to write. He's 14, still figuring out who he is. I told him I wasn't abandoning him, that I'd still be his dad, that he could call my new number anytime, that this wasn't his fault. But he was old enough to understand that how we treat people matters. I included my new address and told him he always had a place with me if he needed it. I sealed each letter and wrote their names on the envelopes. Sunday night, the last walkthrough. They came home from Grandma's like it was any other Sunday. Oscar mentioned his game console was acting up, asked if I could look at it tomorrow. I said I would, knowing I wouldn't be there. Emily talked about needing money for some campus event. Ruth complained about her mother's cooking. Normal Sunday night stuff. After everyone went to bed, I placed the 3 envelopes on the kitchen table, propped up against that damn trophy. The one that said, "World's Biggest Disappointment." I'd moved it from the mantel, front and center. Symbolic? Maybe. Heavy-handed? Probably. But sometimes you need to make a point. I took one last walk through the house I'd paid for, ran my hand along the dining room table where they'd laughed at me, looked at the family photos on the wall, smiling faces that didn't match the reality I'd lived. In the garage, I made sure every tool was back in its proper spot, before packing them into my old toolbox. At 2:17 a.m., I loaded the last of my things into the truck. The neighbor's motion light came on as I backed out. For a second, I thought about all the Sunday afternoons I'd spent helping that same neighbor install that motion light, fix his lawnmower, jump his car in the winter. Funny how life works. Monday morning. Clean break. I drove straight to the regional office, where I was supposed to report for training. I called my supervisor, told him I wouldn't be at training after all. In fact, I wouldn't be coming back. He sounded shocked, asked if everything was okay. I told him, better than okay, for the first time in years. Then I shut off my old phone, activated the new one, sent a quick text to my buddy Jake, mission complete, posted a quiet update to a private social account none of my family knew about. By 9:30 a.m., I was in the parking lot of my new workplace, a competitor that had been trying to hire me for months. The HR rep looked surprised to see me walk in. I told her my circumstances had changed. She smiled and said they'd fast-track my paperwork. Around noon, a co-worker from my old job called. Ruth had shown up, crying, screaming, barefoot in a bathrobe, demanding to know where I was. Security had to escort her out. "He left us with nothing!" she shouted. Interesting choice of words from someone sitting in a house with 15 years. Of equity, 2 cars I paid off, and a pile of secret credit cards she thought I didn't know about. My phone started blowing up. Texts from Ruth, then Emily, then numbers I didn't recognize, probably Ruth's family. I blocked them all, except Oscar. He hasn't reached out. That's the only part that still twists the knife. Update 3. 37 days later. First thing I noticed this morning, I didn't check the time. For 22 years, my first waking thought was always, am I late? Today, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the fridge. No one sighing dramatically because I breathe too loud. No one asking why I haven't fixed the faucet. Just quiet. The quiet's been the biggest adjustment. Sometimes I turn the TV on just to have background noise. Old habits, I guess. My new place is starting to feel less like a pit stop and more like a home. Got a bed frame. Found a decent couch at a thrift store that didn't smell like a crime scene. Small victories. But you're not here for my IKEA journey. You want to know about the fallout. The fallout that first week was like watching a 5-car pileup in slow motion from the safety of the shoulder. Ruth called my new phone 87 times in 48 hours. I counted. Voicemails went from screaming to crying to bargaining to threats. Classic stages of grief, except nobody died. Just her ATM walked out. My old coworker Mike texted me updates. Said, Ruth showed up to my former workplace in slippers and a bathrobe. Mascara streaked down her face, yelling that I'd emptied the accounts and left them destitute. Destitute? I'd only taken what was fair, and I'd been depositing child support for Oscar from day one. Mike said the guys at work were all talking about it. Apparently there was even a betting pool. Had I gone to Mexico, snapped and was living in the woods? Shows how well they knew me after 15 years. I'm way too practical for either. Then, day 9 hit. That's when Emily made a TikTok about me. Screenshots of my letters, sad piano music, called me every name in the book. I walked through our bedroom and gathered only what was truly mine. The watch my dad left me when he died, my high school football ring, my rare vinyl collection, a photo album of my parents and childhood, clothes that fit into 2 duffel bags, and my tools from the garage. In the office, I made copies of everything: tax returns from the last 7 years, mortgage statements, insurance policies, birth certificates, our marriage license, and bank statements showing my contributions. I even created a spreadsheet detailing every major purchase I'd made for the family. I left the originals. This wasn't about stealing. This was about protecting myself. By mid-afternoon, my new apartment had gone from empty to sparse but functional. A mattress on the floor, a folding table and chair, my tools organized neatly along one wall. Not exactly better homes and gardens, but it didn't need to be permanent. Sunday morning, I sat at that folding table and wrote 3 letters. One to Ruth, one to Emily, one to Oscar. Ruth's was straightforward. I told her I was leaving, that I wouldn't contest a divorce, that I'd found her hidden credit cards, that after 22 years of being treated like an ATM and a punchline, I was done. I said I'd continue supporting Oscar because he was still a minor, but I wouldn't be financing anyone's lifestyle anymore. Emily's was shorter. I told her that adults face consequences for how they treat people, that filming someone's humiliation for social media isn't funny. It's cruelty. I told her I'd always love her, but I wouldn't be her emergency fund anymore. When she was ready for a relationship, based on mutual respect, my door would be open. Oscar's was the hardest. He's 14, still figuring out who he is. I told him I wasn't abandoning him, that he could call me any time, that this wasn't his fault. I gave him my new address and told him he always had a place with me. Sunday night, they came back from Grandma's like nothing had changed. Oscar asked if I could fix his gaming PC. I said I would, knowing I wouldn't be there. Emily asked for money for a campus event. Ruth complained about her mom's cooking, normal Sunday night noise. After everyone went to bed, I placed the letters on the kitchen table propped against that damn trophy, the disappointment of the year trophy they gave me for my birthday. I'd moved it from the mantel. Heavy-handed? Maybe. But sometimes you need to make a point. At 2:17 a.m., I loaded the last of my stuff into my truck. As I backed out of the driveway, the neighbor's motion lights came on. For a second, I thought about all the Sundays I'd spent helping that same neighbor fix his lawnmower, install those lights, jump-start his car. Funny how life works. Monday morning. I called my supervisor, told him I wouldn't be coming to training or coming back at all. He was shocked, asked if everything was okay. I told him it was better than okay. For the first time in years, I shut off my old phone, turned on my new one, and texted my buddy Jake. Mission complete. By 9:30 a.m., I was parked outside my new job, a competitor that had been trying to hire me for months. HR was surprised to see me in person. I told them circumstances had changed. They fast-tracked my paperwork. At noon, a former coworker called me. Ruth had shown up at my old office in a bathrobe, crying and screaming that I'd left them with nothing. Security had to escort her out. Nothing? Interesting word choice from someone sitting on a house with 15 years of equity, 2 paid-off cars, and a stash of secret credit cards. Day 3. Oscar hasn't reached out. That's the part that still twists my gut. But the apartment feels more like mine now. Got the internet hooked up. Bought a chair and a TV. Even hung up my old Metallica poster, the one Ruth made me take down, because it was immature. Is it petty that Enter Sandman never sounded better than it does now? Maybe. But as the song goes, exit light, enter night. Some endings are also beginnings. Day 37. Fallout. First thing I noticed this morning, I didn't check the time. For 22 years, I'd wake up with the same thought. Am I late? Today, I just stared at the ceiling, listened to the hum of the fridge. No one sighing because I breathe. Too loud. No one asking why I haven't fixed the faucet yet. The quiet's been the biggest adjustment. Emily posted a TikTok about me. Screenshots of my letters, sad piano music, the caption, "My dad abandoned us over a joke trophy." Toxic masculinity, deadbeat, menoree trash, 6,000 likes before she took it down. Funny how people who love dishing out humiliation crumble when faced with consequences. Week 2. Text from Ruth at 11:47 p.m. The mortgage bounced. How am I supposed to pay this on my own? I didn't answer. Oscar finally reached out. Hey, Dad, the Wi-Fi's out. Mom says we can't afford to fix it. My grades are going to tank. First crack in the armor. I paid the bill directly. Told him I'd set up auto pay for school needs. That's non-negotiable. He texted back. Then, Mom's been crying. A lot. I sat in my truck staring at those 4 words. The rage engine sputtered. Not because I felt bad for Ruth, she made her bed, but because my son was caught in the blast radius. Week 3. Certified letter. Divorce papers. Ruth was filing for abandonment. My lawyer wasn't worried. Said the evidence was on my side. Then I ran into our old neighbor Tom at the hardware store. Asked if it was true that I'd left Ruth and the kids homeless. I gave him the short version. His face changed instantly. He said Emily had dropped out of college. Ruth was selling. Purses online. The lawn hadn't been mowed in weeks. The schadenfreude I expected never came. Just a hollow ache, like winning a race nobody should have been running. Day 23. Ruth wanted to settle. We met at a coffee shop near my job. She looked different. No makeup, messy ponytail, jeans, a plain sweater, no trophy talk, just logistics. Then she dropped the bomb. The trophy video was her idea, not Emily's. She planned it, filmed it, posted it, as a birthday gift. I asked her why. She said she'd felt trapped, angry, resented me for working so much, even though my work kept us afloat. Said the trophy was her way of expressing herself. When I said she could have talked to me, she laughed. Said she had, that I just never listened. Revisionist history. Her version of talking was sarcasm and eye rolls. We settled. I keep my truck and 401k, she keeps the house, refinanced in her name. I continue supporting Oscar directly. As I got up to leave, she asked if I was really happier alone. I told her the truth. The trophy wasn't a joke. It was a receipt. A confirmation that my sacrifices meant nothing. And yes, my cheap apartment without her contempt was paradise. Day 30. Oscar came over. Said he wanted to see the apartment. He brought a duffel bag. I panicked. Was he moving in? Was Ruth kicking him out? Turns out he just wanted to spend the weekend. He looked around, nodded approvingly at my tools, flopped onto the couch like he belonged. We ordered pizza, watched YouTube, laughed. Before bed, he asked, "Are you ever coming home?" I told him the truth. That home wasn't a place, it was a feeling. And I hadn't felt it there in years. Before he left, he handed me something. The trophy. Said Emily had thrown it against the wall after I left. He rescued it from the trash. It's cracked now, still intact. I placed it on my bookshelf, not as a wound, but as a reminder. Day 37. Ruth called. Calm this time, she said she started therapy. That her list of ways she'd contributed to our downfall was longer than she expected. She wasn't asking me to come back, just wanted me to know she was trying to understand. I didn't know what to say. I just said, okay. Oscar comes over every other weekend now. We're rebuilding an old '67 Mustang. More rust than car, but it gives us something to focus on. Yesterday, he asked if we could fix the passenger door handle. Said maybe Emily might want a ride when it's done. First time he's mentioned her. Small steps. The trophy still sits on my shelf. Sometimes it still angers me, but mostly it reminds me I had the courage to rebuild my own engine when it was running on fumes. Is this a happy ending? I don't. No. But it's an honest one. Sometimes you have to blow up your life to remember what actually matters.